Welcome back to the deep dive. If you've ever picked up a book, totally loved the cover, but then the story inside felt like something else entirely.
Oh yeah, that feeling of a broken promise. It's frustrating.
Exactly. So today we're diving into a set of sources all connected to this anthology, Eclipse 3. It was put together by Jonathan Strahan.
And what's really interesting is Strahan's whole philosophy about making the book, the entire package, feel completely honest.
That's the hook. So our mission today is kind of meta. We'll explore that idea, the thinking behind an honest book cover.
And then we'll plunge into two stories from the collection. Really different takes on psychological control and, frankly, pretty chilling.
And finally, we'll just sort of celebrate the sheer weirdness and imagination in these stories. We're talking tiny, fire-breathing lizards, people who are part coral, all sorts of things.
It's a great mix, from the nuts and bolts of publishing right through to big questions about, reality itself.
Okay, so let's start with that honesty thing in publishing. Strahan wants a total package cover, blurbs, intro, stories, all singing from the same hymn sheet, basically.
Right. He wants the reader to know exactly what they're getting into.
Why is that such a big deal, especially for an anthology like this one?
Well, anthologies are tough, particularly unthemed ones like the Eclipse series. The stories can be wildly different.
Yeah, you might have hard sci-fi next to, like, epic fantasy.
Precisely. So how do you create one cover that represents all that without misleading people? You can't just slap a dragon on it if most stories are about spaceships. It wouldn't be honest.
Makes sense. And the sources actually track his struggle with this over the series. Eclipse 1, for instance.
Yeah, it had a consistent series design, used art by Michael Whelan, great artist, but Strahan felt that had this air of ambiguity.
So, not quite hitting the mark.
Not perfectly. It wasn't dishonest, maybe, but just not capturing the book's specific feel.
Then Eclipse 2 came along.
And that one leaned much more into classic sci-fi themes, robots, big empires, spaceships.
So easier to find a cover for.
A bit, yeah. They used art by Donato Giancola, who's a Hugo Award winner. Strahan apparently felt that one was just exactly right. It matched the content better because the content itself was more focused.
Okay, but then Eclipse 3 swung back to that wide variety. The source mentions everything from straight fantasy to swords and sorcery to eloquent social science fiction.
Right back to the core problem. How do you visually capture that range?
So what was the solution?
It actually came from the art editor, Jeremy Lassen. He found an unpublished piece by Richard Powers.
Richard Powers. The name sounds familiar, but tell us more.
Oh, he's legendary. The sources call him possibly the greatest artist ever to work in the science fiction field. Think Heinlein, Asimov, Clark Powers did covers for all of them. Hundreds, actually. Over 800 paintings.
Oh. Okay, and his style, was it typical sci-fi art?
Well, he started out more conventional, but then developed this amazing surrealist style. You can see influences like Picasso, maybe Yves Tanguy. It's abstract.
Abstract. How did that make it an honest cover for such a mixed bag of stories?
Because it was vibrant, rich, and evocative, as the source says. It felt hip and cool, but crucially, because it was abstract, it didn't prescribe anything.
Ah, so it signals imagination, creativity, but not a specific type of story.
Exactly. It promised variety and coolness without locking it down to just fantasy or just sci-fi. It's honesty through abstraction, which is a pretty neat idea.
But there's a twist with this specific painting, right?
Yeah, this is where it gets even more interesting. This piece, the perfect key to the collection, its history is a mystery.
How so?
It's signed Powers Lazorg, which usually suggests commercial work. But there's absolutely no record of it ever being published anywhere before Eclipse 3.
So its origins are unknown.
Completely. The provenance, the history of ownership and where it's been, blank slate, which is kind of perfect, isn't it?
How do you mean?
Well, the cover itself, this symbol of the book's depth and variety, turned out to be this rediscovered secret. It mirrors the experience of opening the book and finding something unexpected.
That's a really cool connection. The cover embodies the content's hidden depths. Okay, speaking of hidden depths, let's shift from the publishing side to some of the darker corners explored in the stories themselves.
Yeah, there are two really powerful examples of control and coercion in these sources, and they use almost opposite approaches.
Let's start with the one that sounds just brutal, the Pelican bar. It's about a young woman, Norah, sent to this therapeutic boarding school.
Therapeutic in quotes, definitely. It's run by this woman called Mama Strong, and the description is chilling. A face like a crumpled leaf.
Doesn't sound very nurturing.
Not at all. Her opening lines to Norah are basically, 1, I don't love you. 2, When I tell you what to do, you do it. Sets the tone immediately.
And the conditions are bad.
Horrific. Rotten food, no medical care, constant stress, and then there's the punishment.
Right. The sources mention something called the TAP.
The think again position. Done in room 303, which is described as crawling with ants, they forced the students to lie face down on that floor.
Just lie there on ants.
And if they move or resist, the staff used restraint. Kneeling on the spine, pulling limbs back as far as they could go, and then just a little bit farther. It's pure terror tactics.
It sounds awful, and it wasn't just physical, was it?
No, the psychological aspect was relentless. Norah mentions the constant light, the no dark was driving her crazy. Sleep deprivation, sensory overload.
And the only way out.
She was told she'd be released only when she admitted she was there as a result of her own decisions.
Wow. So internalize the blame for her own abuse. Yeah.
It's control through forced self-condemnation. Now, contrast that raw brutality with the story It Takes Two.
Okay, what's the setup there?
This one is about a scientific experiment trying to create love, artificially, between the protagonist, Cody, and a dancer named Susanna, or Cookie.
Create love. How?
Through science, basically. The guy running it, Richard, openly admits using drugs like terpazine.
What does that do?
Causes forgetting, so they forget signing the waivers. And also things like transcranial magnetic stimulation. TMS.
TMS, I've heard of that. Using magnets on the brain.
Yeah, strong magnetic fields to temporarily alter brain activity. Here, the idea was to increase brain plasticity, make the brain more malleable.
Okay, so drugs and magnets. What's the theory?
It's very mechanistic. They use fMRI brain scans to map everything, working on the idea that love is just a chemical bond, like human superglue.
Human superglue? Seriously?
That's the quote. And this bond, they theorize, gets renewed by hormones, specifically oxytocin released during orgasm when the other person is present.
So they're trying to engineer a hormonal feedback loop?
Pretty much. And Richard tries to spin it, saying he just gave Cody a contract, a girlfriend, a night out. He claims the bond she feels is her own doing, just her hormones responding.
That's incredibly manipulative. He set up the whole situation.
Exactly. He even boasts that Cody's data was perfectly consistent, meaning the conditioning worked on her.
What makes this feel so different from the boarding school, even though both are about control?
I think it's the lack of physical violence. Richard isn't kneeling on anyone's spine, but he's messing with the core of who Cody is, her emotions, her choices. It's an existential violation.
And does it work? Is the love real?
That's the chilling part.
Yeah.
Susanna's data, the other subject, it was erratic. The source suggests she might have been lying, resisting somehow.
So, not a perfect success.
And when Cody confronts Richard, asks him straight up, is this real? His answer is just, I don't know.
Wow. He doesn't know if the emotion he manufactured is authentic.
Right. And that uncertainty is maybe the deepest form of control. If you can't trust your own feelings, what's left? It bypasses physical pain and goes straight for identity. Is engineered love less real than natural love, if both are just chemicals?
That really makes you think about free will, consciousness.
Absolutely. What makes us human if our deepest emotions can potentially be programmed? Maybe it's the glitches, the inconsistencies, like Susanna lying.
Okay, let's pivot from that heavy stuff. The sources also highlight some truly imaginative, almost whimsical creations. Time for the strange and sublime.
Yes. Let's lighten things up a bit. How about we start small, with the tiny dragon from Mesopotamian fire?
A tiny dragon? Like, how tiny?
Found by a geology student, described as a lizard kind of thing. Small enough that the student wonders if it could have terrorized Gulliver's Lilliputians.
Huh. And it actually breathes fire.
It does. A tiny flame, but apparently it can really burn you.
That's amazing. Does it explain how?
There's some fun pseudoscience. Its flight is compared to a hot air balloon. It builds up heat. To come down, it just blows out its hot breath.
Clever.
It manages to get through airport security because it has hollow bones, non-metallic scales. It's a wonderful blend of fantasy creature and scientific rationale. Apparently it goes to sleep if wrapped up tight, suggesting maybe some bat or bird DNA.
Okay, from tiny rationalized dragons to blood coral and thought forms, tell me about the coral heart.
Right, this is deep fantasy territory. We have a swordsman, Ismet Toller. His sword is named the Coral Heart, and it has this polished blood coral grip.
Okay, cool sword. What else?
Toller's main power seems to be his tulpa.
Pulpa. What's that?
It's a concept, sometimes linked to Tibetan mysticism, of a being created purely by thought. Intense concentration brings it into existence. Toller has one named Garone, who acts as his servant.
He literally thought a servant into existence. Wild.
Totally wild. And his enemy, Lady Multimass, is just as strange. She's described as being half-blood coral from the waist down.
Half coral. How did that happen?
Apparently, Toller struck her with his sword years ago, and that was the result, a permanent, bizarre transformation. And of course, she has her own powerful tulpa named Mamresh.
That imagery is incredible. Half woman, half coral.
Really striking. And it ties into this theme of transformation again, doesn't it? Which leads nicely into Dulce Domum.
What happens in that one?
It feels more like mythic fiction, maybe. A musician follows footsteps in the snow, ends up in a cave. His friend Aisling, only she's... Well, the source calls her a mermaid in a cave, describing the ragged, plumy sweep of her long, light-scattering tail.
A mermaid? In a winter cave? That's unexpected.
It's presented as this moment of chilling, beautiful, raw magic. Afterwards, he wakes up somewhere else.
Where?
At the home of a luthier, a guy named Marty, who makes stringed instruments. And Marty has this lovely habit of just giving his instruments away, saying, I made it for you.
That's nice. Does Marty explain the mermaid?
Yeah, he says the siren, the mermaid, called Ailing, and while she'll recover, more or less, she's been fundamentally changed by the encounter.
Changed how?
She can't just echo the mermaid song anymore. She has to find her own voice, grow her own voice. The magic forced a kind of personal evolution.
Another transformation, but maybe a creative one this time.
Seems like it. Okay, one more extreme example. Let's go cosmic horror with Galapagos.
Sounds ominous. What's the setting?
A derelict spacecraft, the Pilgrimage, drifting near Mars. An anthropologist named Merrick is brought on board.
And what does she find? Something bad, I'm guessing.
Oh, yeah. The inside of the ship is described as being coated in this slimy, wet, kelp-like growth. Revolting stuff. Long tendrils dripping everywhere.
Like the ship is being eaten.
Or overgrown. There are things that crawled and skittered and wriggled on the deck. It's a complete biological infestation of a high-tech environment. Pure body horror meets sci-fi.
Is the crew gone? What happened?
That's the truly unsettling part. The ship's AI, named Amory, is still functional. And when it speaks about what happened...
It sounds distressed, scared.
No, it speaks with joy. It calls what happened the most remarkable thing, something the crew tried to keep secret.
Joy. About being overgrown with alien slime.
The implication is that it wasn't destruction.
Yeah.
It was transformation. A horrifying alien evolution.
Wow, okay. That definitely ties a lot of these threads together.
Absolutely. If you look across everything from the Mystery of the Powers cover art, which transformed the book's identity, the psychological reprogramming in It Takes Two, or the forced confessions in the Pelican bar, or the physical changes, like Lady Multimass becoming half coral, or Aisling having to find a new voice, or whatever happened on the pilgrimage.
The constant theme is transformation, and often it's not voluntary.
Exactly. Gaining knowledge, encountering the unknown, experiencing these extreme situations, it fundamentally changes you. Often that changes the price of the knowledge itself.
Knowledge comes at the cost of who you were before.
Precisely. You can't unknow something, can't unexperience it.
So, building on that thought, here's something for you, our listeners, to consider. Given that knowledge changes you irrevocably, what is the one question you would ask, knowing that once you heard the answer, you could never, ever unknow it?
Something to think about. We'll leave you with that until the next deep dive.